So are the following spreads or player props too high, too long, or too low, which means too short? New England favored by 6.5. Oh, take it on the Jets. Too long or too short, Pearce?
That's too low of a number. Everyone knows the Patriots own the Jets, 19-3 over the last 10 seasons. Now, against the spread, the Patriots are just 10-12, so half the time they failed to cover against the Jets. But most of the time, the spread with Tom Brady and the Patriots is much, much larger. So it's hard to cover spreads when you have to win by 2 touchdowns. The magic number has really been when it's around a touchdown or less. That's when the Patriots always cover. And so right here in this spot, I think you're going to be fine. We saw in the first matchup, the Patriots were favored by a touchdown and absolutely smoked the Jets. We know what Belichick's going to do. He's going to shut down Corey Davis. And when you shut that down, there's pretty much nothing the Jets are going to be able to do. Zach Wilson will just struggle. And I think it'll be another easy win for the Patriots.
Yeah, what do you think here, Matt? Patriots are 2-4, all 4 losses coming at home here, and they are at home in Foxborough.
So when I first looked at this line, I actually agreed very strongly with Pearce. It was like, why are the Patriots only -6.5? They're the much better team. And the more I look at this, the more I'm starting to move the other way. I think defensive injuries on the Patriots side are a factor. And then just like this, sometimes football is weird and we don't really know what's going to happen. So maybe just taking a look at what most people are betting on gives some indication. And we're getting something like 86% of the bets and 93% of the handle on the Patriots to cover. I don't know that necessarily means the Jets are a good bet, but it does give me some hesitancy. I do think, though, that this line will reach 7 at some point. If I can give a real concrete prediction there, if you do like the Jets, wait. If you don't, if you like the Patriots, you probably want to get it now, because I do think with so many people betting New England, this line probably will go up. But if I have to pick, I'm leaning Jets, but this should be close to the number.
Okay, well, speaking of New England here, Tampa Bay and Tom Brady are favored by 12 hosting Chicago. Where are you going here, Matt?
This one I think is really fair. So I'm just going to give the boring answer with this game. Like, to me, it seemed like this line could have been anywhere between the 10 and 14 point numbers, which are like the 2 key numbers on either side, and anywhere around 11, 12, or 13. More or less, it's the same thing. Tampa's a really good team. I don't think Chicago's that bad of a team. Maybe they're average, maybe a little below average. So this number just kind of feels right. I don't really want to go too high or too low. I'll save that one for the next game.
Okay, how about you, Pearce?
Well, I'll play the game. I'll say it's too low. You look at Tampa, when they've been double-digit favorites, they cover both times against Atlanta and against Miami. I know that people expected them to cover against New England, but New England was really up for that game, so they didn't cover there. And then on a short week, playing on the road against Philadelphia, they just barely missed a cover there as well. Tampa's the better team. You can't run on Tampa, so it's going to have to be the Justin Fields show. And Chicago really doesn't want Justin Fields to do anything. They're trying to hide him, and now he's going to have to be front and center in this offense. I just don't see it working out for Chicago, and we could easily see another Tom Brady 5-touchdown performance. So if they cover, they're going to go way over this.
Yeah, you thought a 12-point spread was big. The Rams are favored by a beefy 15.5 points. That's not even the biggest spread on the Sunday slate. So the Rams are hosting Detroit. Stafford's revenge game. Aaron Darnold is out for blood. So Pearce, too high or too low here? 15.5.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I guess too low. These numbers are through the roof this week. These matchups are crazy, but Detroit is terrible, and they're just going to get worse. I don't see this team getting any better moving forward. The defense just got destroyed last week against the Cincinnati team that's good, but not nearly as good as Los Angeles. And Los Angeles has a really good defense. I think it's really safe to imagine that Detroit falls behind early. They get one-dimensional. They're already no-dimensional. Now you're just going to force a team that can't pass to pass all game. It's going to be a long day for Detroit, and Los Angeles should just absolutely run away with this game.
Yeah, Matty, how do you feel about this one?
So I do kind of think the Lions can keep this close. And the fact that I'm going to mention Jared Goff also having revenge kind of scares me a little bit. Like, I don't think that's the reason. It's more just this is a lot of points. And I think the Rams are a really good team, but I'm not sure they're quite as good as like maybe they've looked recently. They just had a dominating win over the Giants. I think the Rams are in contention for best team in the NFL. But I've said this many times this season. I don't think anyone's great. So the top tier of teams, I just don't think they're that much better than the middle tier. Obviously, the Lions are not in the middle tier. They are one of the worst teams in the NFL. 15.5 points is just a lot. And this, I guess if the revenge for Jared Goff means anything, it just means the Lions aren't going to roll over in this game. Like if they're thinking about tanking away the rest of their season, I think that probably starts next week because there's so much like emotionally at stake with this one. So at least I don't have the concern that they're just going to give up on this game. And the Lions do have, I guess, some decent offensive players, DeAndre Swift, TJ Hawkinson. Like, I think they can score points here. We've seen the total kind of moving up. It opened below 50. Now we're up to 51. I think this could be a somewhat high-scoring game. Maybe the Lions end up with a backdoor cover like they had in week 1. So that's kind of where I'm leaning.
Well, Goff's girlfriend did say yesterday on Instagram that they are enjoying the change of pace in Detroit. So maybe he is happy there. And this isn't a Goff revenge game, Matt. Patrick Mahomes, let's go to some player props. Patrick Mahomes, 325.5 passing yards at Tennessee in a game that we could see 900 points scored. This player prop, too high or too low? Matt.
I think it's too high. Like, I think Mahomes should do really well this week. I think the Chiefs probably win. I think we do see a high-scoring game, but 325 yards is just a lot of yards. Like, we already have this priced into the betting line, too, where we have a total at 57.5. I don't think the high-scoring game is going to sneak up on anyone. Like, the Chiefs can win something like, I don't know, 31-27. Game comes in right around the number. Mahomes throws for 280 yards because the Chiefs have the lead. And that's really what this comes down to. If you think the Chiefs are leading in the second half, Mahomes just doesn't need to throw as much. They lean on the running game. So I think that that's probably the way this one goes. I think Kansas City, maybe they don't necessarily cover the spread, but I think they will have a lead in the second half most likely, and Mahomes just won't need to air it out. His biggest passing games come in games like Washington last week where they actually were trailing and Mahomes needed to air the ball out. They've had some games recently where they've been struggling, so I don't really see that being the case. I don't think the Titans are nearly as good of a team as the Chiefs are, and Mahomes maybe just can have a comfortable lead in the second half where the yards don't need to be there.
Pearce, what do you think? 325.5 passing yards right now for Patrick Mahomes on the DK Sportsbook.
That's too low. I completely disagree with Matt on this. We saw the Titans last week just basically relentlessly put points up on a Buffalo defense that's really good. And Kansas City has a fraction of the defensive talent that Buffalo has. I just don't see how Kansas City is going to stop Derrick Henry, or at least to the point that Kansas City can be comfortable and take their foot off the gas. I think at best this game remains close, and if it remains close, Kansas City is going to have to keep passing the ball. Tennessee has a decent run defense. And I mean, we saw it last week. Washington had a decent run defense. Kansas City passed for, over 400 yards. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to constantly air the ball out. And plus, that's the big weakness for the Titans this week. They put 2 of their starting cornerbacks on the IR. Another one is questionable. So there was already holes in this terrible pass defense. Now it's that much worse. I got to imagine that Andy Reid is going to attack through the air on Sunday.
All right, dude, one more here for you, Pearce. Cordarrelle Patterson, 80.5 total rushing and receiving yards combined at Miami. What you feeling here?
I'm going to say too low. I'm going to hedge here at the end. But if you look at the last game that they played in London, his snaps were through the season high in snaps, season high in targets, season high in routes. Basically, everything was through the roof. Now, there is an asterisk there. We do know that Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage didn't play in those games, and those players are both going to be back, so that could cut into snaps and targets and routes for Cordarrelle Patterson. But you see that the way he's been playing, they've had a bye week to continue to work him into the system. It would be foolish for the Falcons in a game where you've got a Dolphins defense that hasn't played well to just put him back on the bench. They've got something here, and they need to keep working with him. He's probably the only chance that they have of surprising people by winning more than 500 games this season. So I'm going to go too low, but it could be easily a Calvin Ridley week.
Yeah, Matt, Atlanta's jack of all trades here, dude. Any reason to expect he's going to slow down in week 7?
So this game is really intriguing to me. I'll kind of tease this for a later segment because I think the Falcons are just really overvalued in general here. But for Patterson specifically, he's been so much better than Mike Davis that, like, I do think kind of what Pearce was saying is that we should see his workload keep increasing even with their receivers coming back. This is a big number now, though. Like earlier in the season, I think you could have gotten a rushing receiving prop on Patterson for half of this amount. Now we're up to 80.5. So I think I'm leaning towards it being too low. This is going to be a weird game, though. We might have some rain in the forecast, and it's just like I don't know how these teams are going to play. I think both of them are pretty bad, but I'm leaning towards the over here. It's just like I think this game can go any number of directions, especially if the weather becomes a factor. So it's not my most confident take, but I do think Patterson will be a big factor in this game.